What's going on, Guardians? It's Tizzle here. So recently I did a video breaking down what every verb in the game does. So in this video, I thought it would be fun to rank all the verbs. So there's about 30 to get to. Some don't have in-game descriptions, but they are on the Destiny data compendium, so I'm going to include them. But we're just going to start with Arc, which only has 4, and the first one is Amplified. So your movement speed and weapon handling are greatly increased. After sprinting for a short time, your movement speed is further increased, and rapidly defeating targets with arc damage makes you amplified. So you get plus 50 mobility, 33% increased slide distance, plus 40 handling, a 0.95x handling duration multiplier for 15 seconds. And then you also get the speed booster, which increases your jump height by 25% and your slide distance by 50%. So overall, these are some nice benefits. But in the grand scheme of like the verbs in the game, there's definitely stronger. So I think it's a solid B tier. Amplified is nice, but it's definitely not game breaking. I think it's just kind of right in the middle. So blind, combatants are disoriented and cannot fire their weapons. Opposing Guardian's HUD is removed and their vision is obscured. When blinded, it stuns unstoppable champions. So blind actually lasts a really long time compared to like disorienting grenades. And it basically keeps enemies from shooting you entirely. The thing with blind is there's not a ton of ways to use it, but if there are things that can blind, like the Queen Breaker's bow can blind, flashbang grenades can blind. So things that are capable of doing it are very strong in PvE. It just doesn't have high uptime. But honestly, as far as like a verb, especially for PvE and just like being able to survive and stuff, I'm going to give it S tier. Like, it is very, very good. But like I said, it's not the easiest to activate. But we're just going on the strength of the verb itself, not like how easy it is to proc. So next is Ionic Trace. This is actually the subclass pickup or whatever, elemental pickup. So there's like fire sprites and stuff. So the Arc one is Ionic Trace. And this one's the best one in my opinion. It gives you 12.5% grenade and melee energy and 15% class ability energy. So that's huge. So a bolt of pure arc energy that travels along the ground seeking toward its creator. When picked up, Ionic Traces grant ability energy. So yeah, it's extremely easy to make as well, even though I said I'm not really rating them on that, but that is a positive for Ionic Traces. But as far as all the elemental pickups go, I think they're the best, so they're also going to go in the S tier just because they give huge ability energy and you can have crazy ability uptime with how often you can get them. And I don't believe there's a cooldown on them either, where other ones do have like a 5-second cooldown. I can't remember the time. I'll look it up here in a minute. So then the other one is Jolt. The target is energized with destructive arc light. They take additional damage while jolted and chain lightning to nearby targets. Jolt damage causes overload champions to be stunned. So Jolt is extremely strong. Like on overloads, it's pretty much the best thing you can use on an overload because it lasts like a really long time and you can usually get 2 stuns off with 1 Jolt. You can proc it with Volt Shot, which is really easy, and it does good ad clear. So again, as far as verbs go, I think Jolt is S tier. So I didn't like make notes on this. I'm just going off feel and just playing the game. And yeah, I didn't think Arc would have 3 S tier verbs, but I do think they are all just that good. So next we have Solar, and we start with Cure. You are healed in a burst of mending solar light. So there's Cure 1 times 1 times 2 and times 3, and they give 60, 120 and 130 health. Yeah, it's very nice. It's a little health bump. I don't think it's anything like too strong, but getting health back is always strong. So yeah, a solid B tier. Cure is nice, but nothing game breaking. Fire Sprite, a luminous concentration of solar energy. When picked up, fire sprites grant grenade energy. It's 12.5% and there is a 5-second cooldown on it. I like grenades, so yeah, just a solid B tier for the elemental pickup. Ignition, a large solar explosion which deals damage in an area around the target and stuns unstoppable champions. So I actually recently just soloed a GM and I was getting ignitions with Whisper of the Worm, and ignitions on their own aren't anything amazing, but with the rest of the solar kit, they can become very strong with like the fragments and stuff. So I'm actually going to put ignition in A tier. It's one of the best add clear things in the game, but again, on its own without any help, it's just not as strong as it is like when you build into it, but still a very, very good verb, and it stuns unstoppable champions. Even though they're a little glitchy when they stun from an ignition, still a really good verb, just shy of S tier, but great for add clear. Radiant, your weapons are enhanced by the power of the Traveler and deal increased damage to combatants. While you are Radiant, your weapons pierce the shields of barrier champions and stun them. So Radiant, S tier, 25% damage boost. You pretty much always have to have that in a raid. Like if you're not using Lumina, you better be using Radiant. It can stun unstoppable, it can pierce barrier shields. Yeah, Radiant is excellent in my opinion. Restoration, you regenerate health and shields over time, cannot be interrupted by taking damage. That's the key. It can't be interrupted by taking damage. That fundamentally changes how you play Destiny. As far as I'm concerned, even though Restoration's been nerfed, like it was actually even more broken when it came out, but I would give it like an S+ if I had that. Like it is the top of the top. I think it's probably the best verb in the game. For survivability and just like what you can do with it, it's absolutely phenomenal. Like I said, I recently did kind of like a Destiny retrospective and just talking about like the power creep in Destiny over the years. And ever since Restoration came into the game, like I said, it's allowed you to play so much more aggressively. I can't speak highly enough of Restoration. It is such a good verb. Like I said, it's the best one in the game. All these are S tier, but this would be like S+. Scorch, the target is singed by destructive solar light, taking damage over time. Scorch damage increases as the target accumulates more stacks of Scorch. After enough Scorch stacks are applied, the target ignites. So Scorch is really nice. It's just some passive damage. It's decent for add clear. You can proc it from Incandescent. Yeah, just a solid verb. It's nothing too special, but it is definitely strong. Freeze, the target is trapped in stasis matter and is unable to move. After taking additional damage while frozen, the target shatters. So freeze is very, very good. You can lock down many different enemies, like depending how you're freezing stuff. Again, this is just more focused on the verb, but if enemies are frozen, it's very good. So yeah, we're gonna put it in A tier. It's really nice for like crowd control, so you don't get overwhelmed. So next we have Shatter. As of May 12th, which is the day I'm making this video, there hasn't been any updates on the changes that are coming in the final shape to Stasis. Like I think we're getting Frost Armor because we saw it in like the reveal stream. And also this season there's an artifact mod that like buffs shatter damage. So I think that's them playtesting for where they want Stasis in the future, because in the past it hasn't been very impressive, but this season I've found it to be very, very good. And it's actually, I thought the problem with Stasis in the past was it had bad like mass ad clearing capability, but with Shatter this season specifically, it's actually got really good like crowd control and AoE damage and stuff. So and it stuns unstoppable champions. So I'm actually going to put Shatter in A tier. Again, I could be biased because of the artifact mod, but I also have a sneaking suspicion that's kind of where it's going to land in the final shape. So yeah, I'm going to put it in A tier. Slow, the target has slowed movement and ability regeneration. Their weapon performance is reduced. Slowed combatants have difficulty firing accurately, and overload champions are stunned. After accumulating enough slow stacks, the target is frozen. So Bleak Watcher is awesome at just slowing tons of ads. And if you get a turret on an overload champion, they're pretty much perma-stunned. And for that like utility alone, I think Slow also deserves A tier. I've also been using Renewal Grasps in in Onslaught, and it's great, especially for the Marauders, because it brings them out of It brings them out of invisibility, and then you can like see them, and it slows them, and they like to sprint for the ADU. So it's really good for just controlling the battlefield and keeping enemies kind of at bay and giving you more time to deal with them. So this season I've been using a lot more Stasis, and I've been really liking slow. Stasis Crystal, a crystal of solidified stasis matter. Upon creation, freezes nearby combatants and slows nearby players. Crystals can be destroyed. So this kind of goes with like Shatter, I guess. Crystals on their own, they actually deal a lot of damage. So this one's kind of an awkward one because I don't know if I really even consider it a verb. So we're just going to go B tier, middle of the road, because it's kind of a weird one. And then this one, it doesn't have a description, but this is Stasis Overshield. It's really nothing impressive. Hopefully it gets a buff. Like I said, we're supposed to be getting Frost Armor, because as it stands, it does have a 50% damage resistance, but it's only got like 50 HP, and it only lasts for like 10 seconds. So the DR is nice, but I'm just going to put it in C tier. And like I said, that's probably changing soon. Hopefully we get some info like this week or next. Stasis Shard, a small shard of stasis matter that can be collected to restore melee energy. So, shards, let's see. They give 10% melee energy for a small and 50% for a large, which is pretty strong. And they work for your teammates, which isn't the case for most elemental pickups. So they do get a little bit of a bump there. And because of that, I'll put it in B. Sever. The target's connections to the world around them are cut and their outgoing damage is significantly reduced. So if we go to Strand, decrease the enemy's outgoing damage dealt by 40%. This is a little out of order. Sorry, 1 second. But anyways, 40% is a very significant reduction in damage. So if you do that on like a boss or something, that's literally the difference between life and death. Again, I'm not looking at how easy it is to sever things. I'm just looking at it on its own. And on its own, it's a pretty strong verb. So we're going to go there. I do want to talk about a grapple tangle for a second. So basically, you can just grapple to it. This one is really hard to rank, and it doesn't have an in-game description. I'm just going off the compendium. But it does allow for infinite grapple melees, and we know how strong that can be. So for that fact alone, we're just going to put it in A tier, because if you can grapple melee over and over and over again, that's extremely strong. Suspend, there was a time this would have been S tier. Now with its nerf to champions, if you don't know, yeah, they're immobilized in thin air. They just get held there. But the duration has been decreased, especially on champions. They only hang for like 2 to 3 seconds or something like that, or 3 to 4. And then other combatants are 5 and then 7 if you have the fragment that extends it. But anyway, Suspend on its own is very good. I would say actually better than Freeze, because Freeze, they will just shatter once you start dealing damage to them. Where on suspended targets, you can just keep dealing damage over and over. So, like I said, it was a no-brainer S tier before when it lasted forever. Now I'm debating it could still be lower tier S tier or just high A tier. I really don't know where to rank this. Like, Suspend is very, very good. Screw it. We'll just put it in S tier. Like, suspending targets, it nullifies them. They can't do anything, and they just sit there and you just deal damage to them. So that's extremely strong. Like, if you could suspend everything, which the one Warlock build kind of can do that with Weaver's Trance, it makes the gameplay super easy. So yeah, I'm happy with Suspend in S tier. Tangle, a knot of strand matter swirling with potential. Tangles can be shot and destroyed or picked up and thrown. Defeating targets afflicted by any strand debuff will unwind them. So they're easy to make, and they do have lots of utility. You can grapple to them for movement, whirling maelstroms. So they have like more utility than pretty much any other subclass pickup. So yeah, we're going to put them in A tier. They're pretty good. Threadlings, a creature woven from pure strand matter that seeks nearby targets and attacks, dealing damage. So, yeah, Threadlings, they're annoying in PvP, but you can build into them to be pretty good in PvE. We're just going to go with B. They can be like buffed, and you can run something like the Swarmers to buff them even further, but like on their own, I think they're B. It's nice because they seek out targets so they can kind of deal damage while you're in cover. Unravel, the target is permeated with destructive strand matter. As they take additional damage, they create unraveled projectiles that seek out nearby targets. Unraveling rounds stun barrier champs, and unraveled targets unwind into a tangle. So Unravel, it does extra damage and it does some AoE damage. So it's a little bit like Jolt in that like aspect, but I think just not quite as strong. But A tier for sure. It's really nice. Like you'll see people utilize Unravel just for like that extra bit of damage in like speed runs or solo raid stuff and stuff like that. It's very good. Woven Mail, your body is encased in a protective mesh of tightly woven strand matter, greatly reducing any incoming non-precision damage. So Woven Mail, it's a 45% damage resistance according to the compendium now. I think it used to be 55. I know it got nerfed. Very, very good. Damage resistance is always strong in PvE. It's very easy to get to proc on, well, especially on Titan. Yeah, we'll give it S tier, honestly. It helps for survivability so much and allows you to really play aggressive in harder end content where you normally wouldn't be able to. So yeah, S tier for Woven Mail. Devour, this is an obvious S tier as far as I'm concerned. Feast on the energy of your defeated foes. Final blows restore you to full health. So Devour from picking up an orb now doesn't give you full health. It gives you partial health. But if you have the aspect Feed the Void on Warlock, then you'll still get the full health. But you also get grenade energy back. And that grenade energy is like quite significant. So you get huge grenade energy and health back. Devour has long been an S tier. Like it was a verb or keyword before verbs were like introduced with subclass 3.0. It was part of the Warlock kit and it's always been exceptional. Invisibility, you vanish from sight and do not appear on radar. While invisible, your radar range is reduced. Performing offensive actions will end invisibility. So really good in PvP and PvE. Great for training wheels for Guardians as they attempt more difficult content. I think it's excellent for newer Guardians to run invisibility. Just helps them learn enemy AI and gets them a get out of jail free card. Yeah, it's really good. Doesn't have much offensive capability, but a super good defensive one. We're going to go with A. Overshield, you are armored with a protective barrier of void light, reduces damage taken from combatants. I'm just looking for it here. So it's a 50% DR, so that's pretty good. Like I said, damage resistance is good. Overshield. I mean, for some reason I like Woven Mail so much more, maybe because it's just easier to get to activate. Like I'm feeling like I want B for this one. Yeah, I guess it's because like the overshield depletes and then you lose that DR, where with Woven Mail, it's not an overshield, it's just constant DR while you have it up. I guess that's the difference. But yeah, I'll put it in B tier. It's good. Suppression, the target is taken out of any active abilities and cannot activate any abilities or movement modes while suppression persists. Afflicted combatants cannot fire their weapons. And then when suppressed, it stuns overloads. So this one is like blind, very hard to get to activate, but the verb itself of suppressing is extremely strong in PvE. So I think it definitely deserves S tier. It's just hard to get to activate. But like I said, we're ranking this just on what the verb is, not how hard it is to get. Void Breach, a dimensional rupture teaming with void energy. When picked up, it grants class ability energy. I like this on Warlocks. It's 12.5% class ability and there's a 5-second cooldown, where with Ionic Traces, it's 15%. Plus it's 12.5% to grenade and melee, and there's no cooldown as far as I'm aware. So yeah, Void Breach, I think it's just a B tier. Volatile, the target is afflicted with unstable void energy and will explode upon taking additional damage. Volatile rounds pierce barrier champions. So yeah, Volatile is really nice. It's great for like AoE ad clearance stuff. Pretty strong effect. Causes like a little explosion. Somewhere between B and A. I'll be generous and give it A. It is quite strong. And then weaken, the target takes increased damage and has their movement speed slowed. Afflicted combatants have difficulty firing accurately. So if we look, it says weaken is 15%, but then on the compendium, they include the Shadow Shot Weaken, Tractor Cannon, and Fellwinter's Helm. So those are pretty much staples in any raid scenario. And again, I just soloed the Moon Battleground, and I was using weakening grenades with Controverse Hold. And yeah, it was exceptional. I haven't ran that build in a long time, and I was super impressed. So yeah, I think weaken is S tier, especially if it's the 30%, but even the 15%, we've seen it this year. I soloed all the dungeons, and we have Revitalizing Blast, which is essentially just weaken, but you can get it on the Solar subclass, and it helps shave damage phases off of every single dungeon boss. So yeah, other than Stasis Overshield, everything is B and above, which I think is fair. Like, the verbs themselves are very good in my opinion. So I was happy to see this. Let's see. Stasis has the only one in C and the only one without an S tier. And I think that's actually true. Like I said, I didn't script anything beforehand. I was just going off feel. And yeah, Stasis definitely, it was the first 3.0 subclass, like, essentially. So yeah, it's kind of stuck in the past. And like I said, Bungie has said that they're going to be buffing it. So maybe by the time you're seeing this video, they've announced those changes, and maybe like Frost Armor is going to be up there with Woven Mail in the future. So that could flip this right on its axis and take that to S tier. And I honestly hope that happens, because that's kind of how it should be. Like, these verbs all should be strong, I think. But I'm glad to see nothing's like super, super low. Like, you could even argue Stasis Overshield B, whatever. But yeah, I think this was fair, and it was quite fun ranking these. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, then a like and subscription would be greatly appreciated. And if you're still watching, thanks for watching to the end. Take care.